I will now call to order the May 13th, 2014 meeting of the Traffic Review Advisory Board. Good afternoon and welcome. The Traffic Review Advisory Board reviews items of interest regarding parking and traffic within the City of Oshkosh. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations today will go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The Council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If the board does not recommend an item and you don't agree with our decision, you may discuss the item with any Common Council member, and the Council member may sponsor a new ordinance regarding that item. All items recommended by this board require 2 readings before the Common Council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, May 27th, 2014, at 6 p.m., and you will be allowed to comment on the item at that time, though the Council will take no action. On Tuesday, June 10th, 2014, at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the Council will take action. You will again be allowed to speak to the item. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you would like to speak, please step up to the podium and give your name and address. I do ask you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item you are speaking to. The item will then come back to the board for discussion and action. Okay, first item is the approval of last month's minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 7-0.
Okay, new business. A request to change the no parking restriction on the west side of Bowen Street between Sterling Avenue and Irving Avenue from the west side to the east side of Bowen Street. The current condition is no parking on the west side and unrestricted parking on the east side. You want to step up to the podium and give us your name and address, please?
I'm Beverly Johnson, and I live at 722 Bowen. That's the area in question.
Okay.
I'm here because this would create unlimited hardship for me to have the parking. I have aggressive osteoporosis, and as it is now, I can park in front of my house to take my groceries in, or if I'm ill, I have problems with being able to walk well because of osteoporosis. I'm asking if it could be left the way it is, and I don't really understand why there couldn't be parking on both sides. It's a wide street, especially, say, after 5 o'clock. It's more than enough to accommodate everybody. Is that a possibility?
What's the roadway width in that area, Jim?
I don't think I have that with me. I don't. If I remember right, though, I don't think it's.
Because it narrows down there.
Yeah, it does.
I don't think it's going to
Sterling.
meet the warrants for parking on both sides.
Yeah. As far as having parking on both sides, that's something that would have to be looked at, and once, the road width is determined, there's certain criteria that have to be met in order to have on-street parking on both sides, and then to accommodate flows of traffic in each direction. And living in that area, Bowen Street does narrow down at Sterling all the way to the south from where it's at if you go north of Sterling.
Oh, I see.
So the roadway gets quite a bit narrow, and if you drive down the street, there's a jog right there that you have to make to get around the curb.
Yes.
So my thoughts is I don't think the street's wide enough to accommodate both sides, but we certainly can, deal with one side or the other at this point.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Andrew Fisher, 828 Bowen Street, also in the area in question. I'd just like to know what brought on the request to change parking from one side of the street to the other as it currently stands. Is there a specific reasoning behind that? It was not explained in the notice sent to all the residents.
Basically, a citizen called in and was questioning why it changes from one side to the other because he felt it caused a hazard when if you, well, you're obviously familiar with it, but it's, the parking's on one side of the street and then shifts to the other. So he was, when you're driving down the street
Irving, yeah.
right, so when you're driving down the street at night, he was saying that it created a hazard, potential for accidents, which there have been 5 crashes in that area where it shifts in the last 3 years. There were 2 of them did involve collisions with parked vehicles there.
Where were the accidents, where did they happen? Were they at the Irving Street intersection or the Sterling?
Right, it would have been at the Irving.
At the Irving Street, where there is traffic light.
Right, past the traffic light, right.
Okay. Yes, I am being as affected by this, where I have parking on my side of the street. I also noticed that when you are going southbound on Main Street, you already have to make a bit of a jog to go into that narrow section when you're going southbound. Parking on the west side of the street is going to create more of a traffic flow to the opposite side. I would argue against the fact that it creates a hazard, being that there is a stoplight at Irving to slow people down. That's pretty much my point there. Yeah. But it's as simple as a neighborhood request. Someone
Right.
called in and could, okay. Is there a form to fill out or anything like that? Or is it just a matter of-
Generally, they just, you can either if a citizen usually calls in, or in this case, they call into the transportation department, which would go to me.
Okay.
And then that's how most of the agenda items get to the board. So a citizen would call in with a request, it would go to me, I would investigate it, and then I present it to the board, who ultimately decides if they think it should go to the council or not.
Okay. Fair enough.
Thank you.
Hi, Miyoko Grindfisher, 828 Bowen. I guess I just wanted to raise one thought before you guys discuss it as well. It obviously would cost money to change it. And so if it's a request and it's, I guess you have to outweigh whether or not you think it's a hazard, a true hazard, as it stands right now, and is therefore worth the money to spend to change the signs and change the lanes and all of that. So my question is do you think it's worth the money to invest to change it because you think the hazard is worthy of it, of spending? So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to this?
As far as the cost go, I mean, it would involve moving some of the signs, and then it would involve some street painting, obviously. I'm not really sure what the reason is for why it is like that.
Yeah.
I know Mark Huddleston and I discussed it, and he'd been here a while. He wasn't really sure either. I'm thinking the best I could think of is maybe they put it as a traffic calming measure, because I've seen requests to alternate parking to calm traffic, so that would be my best guess.
Yeah, it's been like that as long as I can remember.
Yeah, and I've lived there in that general area since 1979, so, yeah, it's been that way. I think it got set up when the street was redone.
Yeah.
The way the street was set up, and then you have a church down on the corner of Melvin and Bowen, so.
Yeah, I guess my opinion is I don't see any reason to change it from,
I don't see any reason to change it either. I mean, we'd have a few citizens come in favor of the current plan. Nobody came out in favor of changing it besides the original requester.
Right. I agree with Mr. Collins. I think it is a traffic calming measure. We've seen that before. And like I say, I think when that street was redone many years ago, with the church being at that other corner, that's why they allowed parking there for the church parishioners, and then moved it to the other side up farther. And yeah, I've not myself having lived in that general area, haven't seen many accidents in there.
yeah, and I drive that section every day, and I don't personally have a problem with it, so.
Move it.
Second.
Any other discussion? Jen, you can call the roll.
Siebel,
Yes.
Are you in favor or opposed?
What's that?
Oh, you're the first up to vote. We're taking a vote.
Said yes.
He
I said yes.
Okay. Becker?
No.
Ross?
No.
Haas?
No.
Szynski?
No.
Herman?
No.
Houston?
No.
Lost? 1-6.
Item number 2, a request for no parking on the north side of Irving Avenue from Main Street to 20 feet west of Main Street. The current condition is 2-hour parking. And I bet you Mr. Van Ney there is going to speak to this one.
Perhaps. Steve Edney, 701 North Main. I just had to bring up the fact, I know it's only 20 feet, okay, guys? One parking spot. But after being there 38 years and losing one parking spot at a time, it's time the city works on that corner down there a little bit and maybe provide us with a little parking. But that's beside the point. I'm just trying to get a couple of parking spots if you're going to keep taking them away. Just to add a little bit to this little takeaway 20. In front of that 20 is my driveway and back. Take that away and give me a couple parking spots there. Is all I'm asking you to consider. So you got the 20 feet on the corner. You probably have another, I don't know, what would you guess, 40 feet before you hit my driveway?
Yeah, probably.
Something like that. Take my driveway away, I get my 2 more parking spots. But you're going to have to put the curb and gutter in to give me that. So I'd like you to consider that. After like I say, after 38 years, you lost the parking in front on both sides. I've lost the parking on Irving on the south side. I've lost the parking on Irving across the road. A lot of parking's been taken away from us down on the corners. And all I'm asking for is a little consideration, just to add a little bit in front of it, what you're going to take away. Thanks for your time, and think about it that way.
No, as far as, I mean, I totally understand that request, and as far as taking out his driveway approach and doing a curb and gutter there, I mean, that's not within the realm of our jurisdiction.
Adding parking is,
Well, as far as putting curb and gutter and taking your approach
I'm
out,
just saying, advise more parking on the street further ahead, that's all.
because, I mean, legally, you can't park in front of a driveway approach. So even if he would say, hey, we're not using it as a driveway or parking lot anymore because the approach is still there, legally, you can't park there.
Maybe the way to look at it, Tim, if this board wants to move forward with this, we table this request to have Mr. Collins talk to Public Works maybe, or whoever, street department, on his suggestion, and bring it back to next month's meeting to whether that can be done, what would the cost be, issues connected to that, because I would have to agree that, that we've lost parking in that area for the businesses, and they continue to take one here, one there. And it was a city staff member, so maybe we can find out if he was with the traffic department or with a different part of the department, so maybe the best option at this point, since he's the one that spoke on it so far, unless there's some other citizens that want to speak on it, maybe we table it and have Mr. Collins do a little research into his recommendations, see if that's doable. What would that cost us to do that? Because again, I don't know if he had to pay for that curb cut and all that to have a driveway and that.
I would imagine when they redid your street a couple of years ago.
So now where does that lead us? That's all I'm saying is, but the board can also vote as is and turn it around.
Yeah,
and different request.
I guess I would like to have a little bit more investigation into it to see how that accommodation can maybe be made. I mean, he's willing to give up his little driveway area there to provide on-street parking.
We got to keep, you know, we can't keep taking it away. We gotta put a little bit back down
Yeah,
there.
yep.
You know, that's,
Well, I know over the years, you know, piece by piece, it's gone away, and, yeah, there's no doubt about that.
otherwise just leave my 20 feet alone.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know the concern there is when, especially at night, when sometimes they park right up to the crosswalk, so if you're
Yeah.
turning, when you're
It's a tough corner to
taking
make.
that right turn, it's not a lot of room there.
No.
yeah, and I think, and that too, I mean, we've got some, you know, drivers out there that maybe aren't, you know, considering the fact that the tail end of their vehicle's hanging basically into the intersection.
Especially if you have a left turn car in that intersection.
Yeah, and another thing too is if you've got a vehicle eastbound on Irving in the left turn lane, I'm going to say 85% of people out there do not heed those stop lines. They're pulling right up to the crosswalk, which just sucks in your whole turning radius. So it poses a problem. You know, so you've got people that aren't obeying the traffic stop lines at the intersection, people that don't consider how far out their vehicle's parked. I get it. My view on it is I would like to maybe, you know, I'd like to table it and maybe have it looked into a little bit further to see if some accommodations can be made with that driveway approach and open that up, because that would give them a good, at least 2 good-sized parking spots there.
Make it a motion?
I'll move to table it.
Second it. Why don't you add on to there to have?
And then to
research it?
have
Talk to the
the,
property owner. And
yeah, have the transportation director consult with Public Works or the appropriate department and investigate to see what type of costs are involved, and if it's something that, if it's fairly easily done, you know, then I think then we can revisit the 20 feet from the intersection.
And you agree to that?
What's that?
You second that? I second it. So we don't have to go back to it? Okay, now we can table.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye. Okay, on to number 3. Thanks for stopping.
You betcha.
Item number 3, a request to prohibit westbound to southbound left turns at Merritt Avenue and Main Street. The current condition is left turns are allowed. Anybody want to speak on that?
I'm Mary Schultz. I live at 507 Jackson Street, and my first remark would involve wondering why it got changed in the first place, which probably happened, I'm guessing, a little over a year ago. Jim wasn't able to help me with that because he's new, but that would be my first.
About a year ago.
Yeah, it was about a year.
Also approved that.
Yeah, I was here when that happened.
And I'm wondering why.
We actually had quite a few people that, you know, requested, you know, that they be able to make that left turn there. We understood there was a sight distance issue, but the sight distance issue really, you know, if you're facing westbound, it's not a real issue because you've got Church Ave coming in an angle, so you've got a pretty good view of down the street. My concern at the time was the amount of traffic that was going to be held up by one vehicle waiting to make a left turn when everybody else wants to go straight through the intersection, and then they don't make their green light, the cycle goes through. And that was the one concern that I raised back then, and I don't remember how I voted on it, but I know that I wasn't a big fan of doing that at the time, but I know we did pass it. You know, we had looked at accident data. I think that there's probably been traffic data gathered on it since then. I know that when Chris Strong was still here, he was going to monitor it, and we didn't hear anything negative coming back out of it after we approved that, and then the council ultimately did.
I'm wondering if a lot of people were just unaware of how it happened, and I guess as a person who goes through that regularly on a probably sometimes 3 to 4 times a day to the library, the YMCA, my 95-year-old mother lives on the east side, and finding that it's just probably more of a frustration, the horn beeping, especially when it gets to be around 5 o'clock when it's a little busier. So
Yeah.
I was hoping, and I think Jim saw to it, that there was a camera there for maybe 2 days. I'm not sure I felt that was an adequate assessment or, evaluation of how the traffic flows there. So I'm hoping that maybe you'll consider revisiting. And I guess another question I would have was, how long was it no left turn before we...
As long as I've been driving, I think, yeah.
Okay, so I guess I think it might warrant being revisited,
Yeah,
given that.
And one of the, I think one of the discussions that we had on that back when they removed that turn restriction was that everybody was turning there anyways, regardless of the,
Oh,
you're
right.
And even with that, we didn't have the crash data to, say that, okay, this is a problem. So, like I said, I remember having reservations about it. I can't honestly tell you how I voted on it that time, but if the data is showing that the traffic's moving through there and we're not having crashes, that's one thing. I don't know what it's doing for delays of other vehicles.
From the 2 days I looked at in the peak periods, there really weren't any cycle failures. I mean, the traffic was making it through. There's only, since you passed it, there's been one crash there, and it was weather-related.
Mm-hmm.
So there really isn't anything to suggest that the crashes back it up. And I even looked at it. I mean, there was some thought that maybe it backed up when there was a train coming through. I didn't really see that either. I drive through there every day, too, if I go to the Y. But again, when I go, it's at lunchtime. But I know it'd been there for a long, long time. But the thought process from what I've seen on the previous notes, it was taken out because it was found to be unnecessary based on the data that the previous director did, and then also it wasn't really being obeyed very regularly. And I did talk to the police department about this one as well, and they are not in support of it. So they didn't see a reason for it. So
Thank
that's
you.
what the data showed.
Thank you.
Two years ago, when that went in, I was one that voted not to make the change. And it's only confirmed to me since then that that corner is not conducive to a left turn off of Merritt onto Main Street. I'm so convinced it's not, because with that slanted street coming in, you get the first car coming out, say during the busy time, you got a few cars piled up behind it. That first car can't get out in the intersection because of the slanted street. Guess what happens to the cars behind it? They all have to sit there. I live on the east side, and I've got caught in that a couple of times, so I talk from experience on that. And by the time the cars get through from the west side on that slanted street, he makes his turn, probably one other car gets through, and the other cars have to sit there in frustration and wait for the next light.
Yeah, and I guess I'd be curious to see too is when you're eastbound on Church and you want to make a left turn to go north on Main Street, you've got the protected left arrow there, but once it goes to full green, that can get a little dicey there because you can't see the traffic coming westbound on Merritt around the side of the building there.
Would a possibility be that when both of them want to make a left turn, just have two left arrows for whatever time frame? They're turning left on going north on Main, and they're turning left going south on Main?
Well,
There's not any
I think the problem there is because on Church you actually got multiple lanes where you can do that, whereas on Merritt you don't. You've got one single lane that it really wouldn't give any benefit. Yeah.
After being caught a couple of times on that at a busy time and not getting through and having to wait for the light, I learned the best way coming from the east side, I do live on the east side, is to turn on on Jefferson, go down to Washington. They have a designated lane for it, no income traffic on the other side. They have to.
And that's what I do too.
Safety as can be,
Yeah.
and you're not holding anybody up. So it can be done, it's just not on that corner.
Oh.
That was my argument 2 years ago, it still is now.
Move. Second. I did.
Okay. Then we will start with, any more discussion? Okay.
Got none.
Siebel,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Ross,
No.
Aye.
Szynski,
No.
Herman,
No.
Schuster.
Yes.
Carried, 4-3.
Item number 4, a request for a stop sign at the intersection of Rar Avenue and Lane Street. The current condition is a pedestrian crossing. Don't have anybody here to speak on that?
That intersection is real low traffic.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of surprised to see that request.
I went out and looked at it, and it's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost like an alley.
It is. Yeah. Lane Street is, you can get one car through there, and then you get to Babbitt's, and that's even tight quarters, so.
But definitely doesn't meet the warrants, and with the pedestrian crossing, I think that's probably the best.
Yeah. I'll move it.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Siebel,
No.
Becker,
No.
Ross,
No.
Haas,
No.
Szynski,
No.
Herman,
No.
Schuster,
No.
lost 7-0.
Item 5, a request for no parking on the east side of Broad Street from Tennessee Avenue to New York. Current condition, no parking on the west side.
My name is Tricia Diener. I live at 1316 Broad. I brought it to you, the first part of no parking on the one side, and then the council people brought it up and thought it would be better that they left it both sides parking. Well, I've been living down there almost 4 years. They have that, some type of business, recover treatment. But if you understand that when you have 2 vehicles, one on each side, you got 4 or 5 parking. You got people coming, dropping people off, blocking one lane. Then you got people parking, letting the kids out on the left-hand side. It's a safety matter. And number 2 is they have a parking lot. It could work that they have the parking lot to the park-in. But I think it's best to go to one-side parking. Your plows can't get through in the winter. It's too congestion. And I would like to know if you would think on just going one side. And number 2, we want to all be good neighbors. The railroad tries to work with the city. City tries to work with the railroad. Why should people have their property damaged and all tore up? But my considering is safety matter, more than everything getting ripped up. But, we want to be good neighbors, and the people got to understand that's their business. They have their people coming in, but they still got to have respect, too.
Well, the parking was removed on the west side of the street in last June and July, so there is only parking on one side of the street.
Up to Tennessee, though.
Up to Tennessee.
Tennessee to the south is.
Yeah.
But the road widens.
Yeah, the road widens at Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah.
Yeah.
And from what I see in our information, that crash data has not revealed any specific safety problems. In the street division, the presence of on-street parking has not been a problem with snow removal or street maintenance in the area. And it doesn't meet the other criteria of parking restrictions.
Yeah, I personally don't see any issues with this section either. The roadway is quite a bit wider than it is to the north of Tennessee, and I drive through there 2 times a day. So I drive through there when the treatment facility is full, and so there's vehicles parked on both sides. I'm able to get through there with no problems, and I haven't seen any safety concerns.
Move it.
Any further discussion?
Maybe 2 or just you guys?
Did you have something else to say?
Yeah, like this winter, you try to get down the street and you got 4 to 7 inches of snow. and you got vehicles on both sides, where are you supposed to go? You're like, your car is like so close to each other car. So it's you know, I'm going to talk to Public Works, Mr. Public, and find out, because I know the plows have trouble over on Broad, trying to plow with vehicles parked over on the one side. So I know there is a little problem with some of the matters with snow. Because the plow hit the power pole because there was not enough turn for him.
Well, I guess my question would be then is, we remove parking on the west side of Broad Street from Tennessee to Nevada.
Right.
So you keep your parking on the east side between those streets. But now you want to restrict the parking on the east side, which is inconsistent with the street down further to the north. So now we're doing exactly what we discussed in our first item on Bowen Street, where you're shifting parking on the street, which really doesn't make a lot of sense, because the way that's set up there is that section of street between Tennessee and New York is wider than the section north of Tennessee.
I get your point. I know what you're trying to say. You think it's wide. But when you got a snowplow truck trying to come through there, you got other vehicles coming there, and then the people, they don't move right away once they drop the people off. They
Okay,
stay
well,
there.
but I haven't heard any complaints from the Department of Public Works stating that their plow operators have a concern about this.
But I'm going to mention this project, maybe he can get back to you, but it is true.
Well,
We see it.
Ms. Diener, in our review, and it's from the street division, the presence of on-street parking has not been any problem with snow removal or street maintenance in this area. That's Public Works telling us that information.
How do you get when you have two vehicles on each side?
They don't seem to have a problem.
Well, I'll mention the project tonight. That's all. I'm just trying to voice my opinion. To have you guys.
Jen, you want to call the roll?
Evil.
No.
Becker?
No.
Ross?
No.
Haas?
No.
Jazinski?
No.
Herman?
No.
Schuster?
No. Okay, staff statements.
Okay, the first one, at the last meeting, they asked for crash data, the exit of the Express Convenience Center, turning west onto Witzel. I did look at the crashes there at Witzel and Monticello. That's the drive directly across from the exit there. There were 5 crashes there, but none of them were related to turning west. It seems like the majority of them were like rear-end collisions where people were turning into the parking lot. There didn't seem to be any coming out of that. So I know we talked last time. I mean, it's possible that more people are going out on that the Kohler Street exit. But so far, I'm actually doing the accident analysis from last year now, and I haven't. That hasn't come up as a problem at this time. Other questions or discussion?
No?
And then Mr. Becker asked to look at that, the Kohler Street in your father's car where the road curves. I did look at that. There haven't been any crashes there that I could identify due to that. The speed limit there is 30 miles an hour, and the curve's gradual, so I don't think you come up on it real fast. So I guess I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another on that. I mean, it could benefit, but I don't know that it's hazard.
Yeah, I drove through there yesterday, once during daylight hours and once when it started getting dark. And when it's darker, it can be a little bit of a challenge because you got so many lights from up on the roundabouts up high, and it kind of gets your attention. And I'm thinking if you had some individual chevrons, strategically placed, just because when your headlights hit it, it's going to light those things up and at least get your attention. I mean, I think maybe 3 of them would probably do the trick. And daytime it's not an issue. It's at night when you've got a lot of headlights going around in circles and stuff. And I don't know if there's any development in that vacant land right there. I heard that it's been purchased. And I don't know if that institution is going to be putting up a facility there. But in the meantime, I think if we just had, maybe 3 individual chevrons placed just to get your attention, especially for the darker times.
Okay. Any other discussion? I definitely can look into that and see.
Yeah, that's something you can do without having to bring it back to us or even to the council. I'd say go ahead and do it. It's just a informational chevron type thing, and I agree with Tim and Mr. Becker that when the lights are on at the overpass there, with the roundabouts, it can get a little confusing. And people do go faster than 30 down that area. We know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We make it safer, that's fine.
Okay, the signal timing at Pearl in Wisconsin between 4 and 5 p.m. I did do a traffic study there between 4 and 5. And what I observed, I didn't observe any cycle failures, and I did this when school's back in session after spring break. What I found is that left turn arrow allows about 5-6 vehicles, and then the vehicles that didn't make it through the arrow made it through on the green light. The traffic volume coming eastbound is relatively light, which was allowing for those extra turns on green. I guess what I recommend there is once the Alumni Center opens, probably need to reevaluate that, because they did have a call from the university as well, and they were concerned about the left turns into the there onto Pearl as the Alumni Center once it opens. And I recommended the same thing to them. I said, well, why don't we look at it once school's back in session in the fall, the Alumni Center's open, and then we can see what the traffic looks like.
Yeah, because after this Friday, it's going to die out over there, so we're
Yeah,
going to get a
and the
little
Alumni
rest.
Center opens on Friday. Is it?
Or are they actually opening that up? And I don't know what type of activities they have planned for that, but, yeah, just,
That's probably a good point.
Keep an eye on
But
it.
the summer probably won't be quite as busy.
Yeah.
And but when the kids come back, and that whole intersection may need to be reevaluated.
I think most of the traffic is coming from people that work at like the city center.
Sure.
You know, they're getting off their jobs and.
Yeah, coming out and coming that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the other thing when we look at that, the ramification it's going to have is those, on the traffic signal coordination on Wisconsin. So there's going to be other consequences.
yeah, you got such short blocks there, it's, it'll be an interesting one.
And then we had the educational material and the flash and yellows from Mr. Becker.
We actually talked briefly about that before the meeting. I think the challenge there really is going to be to disseminate that ideas. I mean, I think it's a valuable point to be made to citizens, because I remember who it was at the last meeting said, they got stuck behind somebody that wouldn't turn left, flashing yellow arrow. So the question is, that out. I know stuff like that's gone out typically in water bills, but that doesn't mean to everybody.
Maybe we talk to DOT, which is the one that put them in there. Maybe we can put together some type of a campaign program or something through the city, because it says in their pamphlet that this is going statewide. So we're not the only community that's going to be.
I've seen it all over the
They
place,
may
yeah.
have a campaign. I mean, they've been doing quite a bit of advertising with again, about the roundabouts and things, and maybe we could put the expense of educating our citizens onto those that created the issue in the city.
PSA already done, and just put it on.
Yeah.
City.
Yeah, and we could put we could put an informational item on city cable, or I know Mr. Roll's weekly TV show, he occasionally has guests on. Maybe you can be a guest and talk a little bit about this issue at our intersections and things, and then have a drop-down box or something on the transportation's website or something with a pamphlet that they could download, or that takes them to DOT, as Mr. Becker said, that it's on their website. So, yeah, it's good. It's good information.
Yeah, I'll definitely, I can look into that and report what I find.
Yeah, or like periodically on those cable channels, they have just like you could just put up like these pictures that show it, like they have, picture times or, scenes they show.
Right.
Okay, and then the Sawyer Bike Path, planning's still working on that, so it'll probably come up again next month. There's it's in that, it's in the long-range plan, and there's still a push for it, so they're trying to work around the parking concerns, and then drawing up how the intersection would work at Sawyer and Woodsville.
Anybody else have anything else?
I just wanted to bring up 20th Ave. There's a question on it. Oregon to South Park, 35 miles an hour, and then from South Park to Oakwood, 30 miles an hour. Is there any reason why that is? I'm noticing a lot of traffic, police activity, west of South Park, when they're sitting over by Pepsi and that, getting a lot of speeders and stuff like that. But, there's a lot of, commercial vacant land on that side of the road as well. We have the airport between between Oregon and South Park. So I just noticed that there is a difference in speed.
I guess I didn't realize
that. And I drive there every day, and I know that no one's ever driving 35 on 20th there. They're above that. So I was just questioning, is there a reason why this difference in the speeds when there's...
So does when it drops to 30 at South Park to the west, where does it kick up then once you get past Carl Traeger? Or
By the Y there.
Yeah,
right by the Y
Y.
there? Okay. Yeah, I guess I never paid any...
I'm just seeing a lot of cars getting pulled over there at that point, so I'm wondering, they're used to driving 35 for that main stretch, and then all of a sudden it comes down to 30. They're already speeding going 35, so it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah.
I didn't see what the consistency was on that, so I don't know if they can look into that or, possibly see about changing.
Well, we always talk about consistency, so,
Right.
we should go one way or the other,
Right. I can see if there's more heavy residential area over there on that stretch, but there really isn't.
Yeah, and whereas the 35 area, that's all residential on the north side of the street, yeah.
But on both sides, it's very, on the south sides there, it's not
Sure.
a lot, it's not heavily residential area.
Yeah,
Commercial property or airport.
I'd be interested in visiting that, and, if you want to, if we can do some counts out there, and I know that the numbers are going to be far less to the west than what it is, especially west of Washburn, than what it is between Oregon and South Park or even Washburn. But yeah, I would be in agreement that it should be more consistent all the way through. Anything else? Second? Aye.